Hello again. The thumbnail to this video shows a presentation which was published by the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is, the good Lord preserve us, part of the Smithsonian Group of Museums. It explains more clearly than anything which I could say why black people in both the United States and Britain do not do as well on any front as white people. The qualities and values which lead on to academic success, jobs with high incomes, home ownership and social success are explicitly rejected as being part of whiteness, which is treated as a malignant force which rules and distorts society, imposing itself as a dominant ideology to the detriment of other minority cultures. Among the features of this oppressive way of thinking are listed objective thinking itself. In other words, those running this museum feel that the Enlightenment, which placed rational inquiry and thought above all else, was no more than a white trick. It is part of the emphasis on the scientific method. Even cause and effect is a white way of looking at the world. We see here perhaps one reason why there are so few black physicists and chemists. Those who reject the scientific method are unlikely to become scientists. The idea that hard work is the key to success is also associated with European thought too, as is the concept of work before play. I might mention at this point that these are not really especially white European ideas. We see them too in Chinese people and Indian Hindus. Perhaps coincidentally, or possibly not, these two groups have no difficulty at all in flourishing in white society, and often indeed doing a damn sight better than white people themselves when it comes to academic achievement and the pursuit of wealth. Anybody rejecting the notion that hard work is likely to lead to success is very unlikely to get on in Britain or the United States, or dare I say it, anywhere else in the world. Remember, this list has not been produced by a white supremacist, but by black people working for the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I'm using their words, not my own. Another element of white culture is the idea that a mother and father should raise their children together, and even, and this is most peculiar, that children should have their own bedrooms. Where on earth should they sleep? On the floor in the communal living area? In their parents' bedroom? More research is certainly needed into the idea that there is something especially white about children having their own rooms. Once more, this might say more about black culture than it does about white. The second part of this checklist may be found in another link, which I post in the description to this video. I give one link to the Museum of African American Culture and History, what they say about whiteness, and I give another link with both parts of the description, which I post as a thumbnail to this video. In the second part, you can see that respect for authority is listed as another aspect of white culture. So too is planning for the future, delayed gratification, and what is described as following rigid time schedules. I assume that this means turning up on time for appointments and job interviews, stuff like that. But I'm prepared to be proved wrong about that. If any viewers can think of another interpretation, I will cheerfully read it in the comments that they post here. That any group of black people could have sat down together and decided that all these things are part of whiteness and white culture says far more about those people than it does about the society in which we live. If you seriously think that planning for the future and turning up on time are symptoms of white hegemony, then you really are going to have a difficult time anywhere in the world. This list explains far more clearly than anything at all which I could say why people of Caribbean and African ancestry do not in general do so well as white people. It explains why there are fewer black millionaires and scientists, and why more black people are unemployed and in low income jobs than is the case with those of Chinese or European heritage. If you belong to a group which explicitly rejects good timekeeping and planning for the future, a group that regards the idea of hard work leading to success as being some sort of trick or chimera, then you're really not going to do very well economically in the modern world. If in addition to this you do not believe that rational thought and a belief in the principle of cause and effect are of any particular value, then the stage is set for disastrous outcomes for you and your children. If you think that giving your children a room of their own is some sort of weird white idea, then this too is going to have an effect on the next generation. The next time anybody thinks of accusing me of racism for saying things of this kind about black people, do bear in mind that it is not I who am saying all this, but an influential group of black people themselves. I'm perfectly aware that they don't speak for all black people, and I'm also well aware that not all black people behave in the way that this checklist would suggest they should, if that's how I interpret it. In other words, there are many black people that do follow the values of what is seen here as whiteness or white culture. But the very fact that a number of African American academics could sit down together and compile a list like this and describe some of the things that help people get on in society as being part of whiteness is, to my mind, indicative of what it is which is holding back a lot of black people. And it's that rather than racism which is the problem.